All right, let me build the clock divider at last. For those of you who are following this series quite regularly, I've made some small changes in the circuit. There are 3 resistors with fixed values now, 1, 5 and 470 kilo ohm, and there are LEDs to show the input signal as well as the output signal now. I've chosen different values for some components too. The second potentiometer is 25 kilo ohm now, and some of the capacitors have also got slightly different values. Why? Well, I simply didn't have the planned values at hand. The mechanical construction of the divider module, the basic layout, and the making of the front panel are similar to the clock generator module. I'm sure you're not an expert yet, but there is one advice I can give you already, in case you are a beginner in making synth modules. And this advice is, do it slowly, really slowly. You are already doing it slowly, well then slow down even a bit more. I made a lot of mistakes during the production of this module here, which I fortunately discovered early enough. I have to fix this video board, of course. But that's not one of the mistakes. That's just the next step. And I discovered these mistakes because I was working very slowly. I discovered all these mistakes, but for one. I'm going to talk about mistakes a bit later, a bit more about the process of making itself at first. After finding a suitable circuit draft on the internet or in other sources, I found some nice printed books in between, and after understanding at least the basic principles of the circuit, I changed it a bit, and more capacitors, for example, and more resistors and potentiometers instead of fixed resistor values. Small changes indeed, but useful ones. The next step was the layout of the front panel. I needed a switch for the resistors and the potentiometers, and a switch, better said, a kind of patchway for the capacitors, 2 LEDs, input and output jack, and 3 potentiometers to be placed there. I took more care of the position of the labels for the resistors, this big knob here, this time. More care than I did during the construction of the clock generator. I wanted to have these marks at the correct place, and I think now I did it right. Yes, they are where they belong to. Now for the next part, the layout of the Velo board. Translating the schematic of the circuit to the layout of the board needs some heedfulness. I controlled each cable, each interruption of the copper, and the placement of each part more than only once, following the signal flow on my Velo board layout and comparing it with the schematic. Well, and then it's all about making the real module from the draft on the paper, slowly and carefully. All right. Let me find out if everything is going to work as it should before I fix the Velo board to the front panel. So I switch my little modular synth on and feed the signal from the clock divider, from the clock generator into the clock divider. Okay. The input signal arrives, of course it does. Not a big surprise, not a big thing. Both LEDs, the input of the clock divider and the output of the clock module Clock 1, they blink in phase, okay, but nothing reaches the output. Can do switch as I like. Nothing reaches the output. Well, even I was too fast in the end. I was too eager to see my module working to pay attention to the fact that I simply had not inserted the NE555 in the socket yet. What a stupid mistake, really. But unfortunately, there must be at least one more mistake in the module, because the output diode still doesn't show anything. And what's probably even worse, even if the output diode doesn't show any pulses, the output jack delivers pulses, delivers the same pulses which are at the input without any changes. I searched for the mistake more than 2 hours. I controlled the velo board, the soldering points. I looked for shortages. I looked for cables being soldered at wrong places. I controlled if there was a bad part or a broken capacitor for something, for example, but nothing. I couldn't find any mistake. I lost my confidence in my general circuit layout and tested it on the breadboard again. Instead of the potentiometer, I chose only the 470 kilo ohm resistor, and instead of 14 different capacitors, I took only one, the 10 microfarad one. Both together should lead to an output clock of about 3 seconds, given an input frequency of, more than only pulses every 3 seconds. And everything works like a dream. My general layout of the circuit is okay and works. But there is a general problem nevertheless. I forgot about the fact how the NE555 works internally. The frequency of the input pulses gets divided, as it should, but the level between the pulses at the output is positive. The diode is shining, and it's not negative. The level between the pulses is not negative. And now I remember, some diary entries ago I talked about it. I need an additional circuit that makes positive levels to ground levels and ground levels to positive levels. Well, I'll have to solve that later. For today, I have to find the mistake in my module. My circuit here on the breadboard is working. Stop. I wanted to tell you that there's a Patreon page of mine now. You will find the link down in the descriptions. I'd really appreciate you went there, having a look and leaving a comment. Thank you very much indeed. But now, enjoy your day. Rolf.